Hello and welcome to that Sunday evening video where I have a look at all of the developer responses and replies to your comments and pick out the best ones for us to peruse and maybe glean some extra little tidbit of information from them. And as always, we will be starting with the Saturday building, but not before I ask you to pretty please throw me a sub. That's it. Let's move in. So, today we actually get three buildings for the Saturday building. Not sure why. Maybe they're going to be missing next Saturday building, what with what we learned at the end of the Ethiopia dev diary, that they're having some internal event next Friday. Maybe that will roll over to Saturday. Who knows? But either way, we're getting three today. So we have the Spinners Guild to start with. The production of various textiles is often a cornerstone of a realm's economy. The Spinners Guild, which includes dyers, weavers, and fullers, maintains a steady production as well as a set of standards to ensure the quality and volume needed. This is the starter building. It can be upgraded into a textile manufactory and then into a textile mill. Uses cotton, wool, or hempen fiber crops. That's the one. And you get some cloth out of it. So pretty nice. This icon looks like it's a little bit squished, to be honest. Maybe that could be looked at. Next up, we have the Tax Assessor, which is a capital only building, or rather, if it's in the capital. If it's in the capital benefits by giving you more crown power. If it's in the capital, the country benefits by getting more crown power and maximum tax. So it's not a building that you want to build anywhere but the capital. The production method is our first indication of what furniture looks like. This is the very, very first time. So furniture tools, porcelain. I think that's porcelain. It's not lacquerware. Yeah, it is porcelain. Glass, fine cloth, books, ivory, gold, and marble. And that is going to be a recurring monthly requirement. Taxes Assessor enforces the will of the ruler to collect the proper amount of taxation as you wish for more taxes, as you are technically kind of the ruler person. And then finally, we have the Merchant's Quarters. You can build it only in cities, so the higher tier, and it's from the Age of Discovery. Gives you trade advantage, trade capacity, some market protection, and burgers trade capacity. This is a building that I think is going to be built kind of everywhere. I'm not going to lie, this seems like a very, very good building. For 50 gold, I mean, of course, you have a paper, tools, books, and honey cost to it, but this definitely seems worth it to me. Every city will have a Merchant's Quarters, just from... Obviously, we don't know 100% how all of the modifiers will interact and work together, but from just intuition, these all look like pretty good modifiers and pretty good things that you are going to want. So yeah, I'm going to be building these, especially as they don't seem to be very expensive. 50 gold and a little bit of glass and masonry does not seem out of the realms of possibility. Definitely going to be looking to grab myself a bunch of these. Bustling with traders, these quarters house shops and storage, serving as the economic heart where the deals and exchanges flourish. Fantastic. All right, well, with that said, let us move on to the Ethiopian flavor dev diary. And one of the big things that I was thinking while we had this dev diary was that it seemed a bit strong. It seemed very, very strong, but that has been somewhat addressed in the comments. So let's have a dive into those. First of all, wondering if EFAT has events to break free, and doing a scripted war is a challenge to the Ethiopian Empire in the early game. So, no, they have proper mechanics in place to portray EFAT breaking free from Ethiopia, so there isn't any narrative content about that. What I'm assuming this means is that EFAT is such a large country, and it does start as a tributary, right? It's not a straight-up vassal. It starts so large that it may be going to be pretty difficult as Ethiopia to keep them under control regardless. So it wouldn't need any extra narrative content, and the base mechanics would, in this case, be enough. Maybe I should say, what is the biggest hurdle to Ethiopian starting position that you've seen? So, the Mamluks are the big hurdle. The Mamluks are what makes this giga country, what gives it its challenge, I guess. They asked for a new Ethiopian report to their quality assurance last week, and it was in fact tough for them. So yeah, okay, so maybe there is a bit of challenge there that we were kind of missing or didn't think about at the time. But yeah, that's good to know. It's good to know that it's not just going to be a complete walkover. Is it common for the Mamluks to conquer down the Nile and into the Horn of Africa? So they're more of a blocker if you try and move upstream up the River Nile, but it is very work in progress, and AI behavior is not something they want to talk about in detail just yet, which is, I think, fair enough. Why is there an increased penalty to the move capital cost? And this is something that I had pointed out in my video, that I didn't think it made a whole lot of sense for the thing that I'm looking for. Maybe I should have found this before I started. My bad. It is coming. Wandering capital, this one here. And I was wondering that basically, why is this a positive if all of this is about moving the capital? And essentially my thought was, you move it when you get a new ruler, and then it's more expensive to move it again after that. And essentially I was correct. Or is it when a new ruler ascends to the throne, you get an event pop-up allowing you to select a new capital for free, and then if you want to change the capital during the rule of that ruler, you'll incur a penalty to the cost. And yeah, that's essentially it. Next up, how is the quality determined? And he's talking here about the works of art, and we have new quality criterion, right? So before we had just, is it a masterpiece? Is it good? Is it average quality and all that? But now we have quality also including like how well known it is. And this is, you know, the Lalibela Cross is just regionally well known. But it seems very arbitrary in a way, to the point where I'm not sure that I like this being on there at all, to be honest. If it's quite arbitrary in this way, like if I as Ethiopia become an empire that sprawls so hard that, you know, the works of art in my capital become globally well known, well, tough shit, really. You know, these items are going to just be regionally well known. Well, my region is now the world, so yeah, I'm not a massive fan of how arbitrary these seem to be. So an obelisk is a masterpiece, but a literal cathedral in Novgorod is only very good. So our content designers have varied artistic tastes. It's a topic they want to balance out a bit more eventually. I would love to see what happens there. But take into account that different places in the world have different artistic styles and what they consider a work of art. Sure, but what are we looking at it what lens are we looking at it from in the game? Are we looking at it from the lens of the person who holds that piece of art? Are we looking at it from the lens, like, if I'm playing as England and I'm looking at these Ethiopian works of art, am I going to value them higher or lower because of, you know, the English artistic style? Or are we going to see things like cathedrals be ranked a bit higher if you're playing as a Christian nation? Are you going to... I don't know. It does feel very weird, and I don't think there's going to be an elegant solution. So I don't know. I feel like this regionally well-known thing is a little bit awkward. And if you live in one of the places that has, say, a church, cathedral, or whatever that is in the game a work of art, and it's calling it just very good, whereas you're looking out the window at this thing and it looks absolutely gorgeous, you're going to feel a little bit dodgy. You know, it feels a bit weird. So I don't know how I feel about it yet. Works of art, I think it's a good system, but I'm just not sure about whether this is even necessary. Like, how much does this impact the game if it's not there at all? And I'm not sure if I think that its impact is actually going to be worth keeping it there at all, you know? I wouldn't be upset if that was to, you know, go bye-bye. Off topic, but it came to me when reading tooltips with estate names, and I have no clue which estates those are, and it's probably easy to figure out after a while. So essentially what he's talking about is the names of the estates, right? The in the dev diary we had, again, if I go and find one of these in the estates, and we had it's in here somewhere. I know they were up, weren't they? They were the Gebar and the Kahanat, these ones, right? Without playing the tag, you're not going to know what the Kahanat and the Gebar is. It's just completely, not, unless you are familiar with Ethiopian history, then you are not going to know this. So essentially, the case is that all of the estates have the same icon, coloring, and description, and game concept, etc. So independent of the flavor name. So it's probably not going to be that bad, especially if this looks like one of those tooltips that you can hover over and it pulls up an extra nested tooltip. And when you hover over this, it'll show you the Kahanat estate, and then you'll hover over it and, oh, it's blue, therefore it's the nobles, or whatever it ends up being. And then it's going to be fine. You're not going to, have too much of an issue with it. For example, it's going to look like these, right? The crown is the purple one, the blue is the noble one. It's going to look like these. So you're not going to have too much of an issue when you're hovering over and seeing that kind of thing. But just looking at it here and just having the name is... yeah, these definitely need to be nested tooltips, though. So, yeah, hopefully that's going to end up becoming second nature to us, even if we don't know what the flavor names is, or are, I should say. Is the Wandering Court government reform really only a thing for Ethiopia? I know you guys already mentioned that there's a law policy for it that some countries start with, but it seems quite different from this reform. Why don't countries like Castile and Aragon have the reform as well? Sapavia here is responding that they are fully aware of how Iberian monarchies acted in the Middle Ages. Since the Ethiopian court worked a bit differently, they decided to implement the feature here as a test case, and if they end up expanding the feature to other countries, it'll probably be in a different and more or less overhauled way. So, yeah, it's interesting that Ethiopia is being used as a testing ground, let's say, but I do think that regardless of where you're playing from, Castile is definitely a bit more of a... It feels weird to say this, but it's a bit more of a relevant country in the grand scheme of the game's time frame. Game's time frame, Castile formed Spain, colonized, approximately a third of the New World. So it is very relevant as a country, whereas Ethiopia, it declined from its, from this, it declined. So I think it's fair to say that it is a less relevant country in the topic of, the game's time frame, the game's themes and such. So on that note, yeah, sure, it makes sense. But, maybe we'll see the feature expanded and then Ethiopia will also get a new version of it as well. Who knows? Moving on, though, I don't like the writing for the events and the unique descriptions. It's like the writing for the codex and newspapers in Suzerain. I haven't played that game, so I can't really comment on that. Using big words to sound better, even though they don't convey any new information. The flavor writing in E4 was better, short and to the point, conveying useful historical context to the player. And mostly I'm bringing this comment up because I've seen a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, especially with this, accuse it of being AI generated. To the point where they're pulling it into like AI finders, like putting the text into, is this text AI or not? And I don't know. At the end of the day, this flavor text here is something that the devs are giving us as a primer for the country. I don't know if this is in-game, or if it is in-game, if it's anything more than something that's on the main menu when you click your country, and then it'll give you a bit of text. And, they're just trying to weave something a bit fanciful, right? I don't think it necessarily means that it is AI, even if these AI generators are like, yes, no, that we wrote that. That's definitely AI written. Essentially, it's just looking for fancy, flowery language that humans don't generally use in normal speech. But when you are writing something specifically to be flowery and, flavorful and that kind of thing, then you're going to trigger some of those same detection tools. So I don't think it is AI. And I also don't think it matters in this case because, this text isn't going to be in there. Whether they're talking about that or whether they're talking about some of these texts here, then I don't know, but I don't know. They're looking forward to revisiting some of the event texts. They may have noticed in previous Tidal flavors that they have a historical info fluff in some of them, which is something that they're slowly expanding to detach more gamey descriptions from the historical flavor. The historical info will also be a hoverable option, so the player doesn't have to read it if it's not their cup of tea, which I think is also kind of fair enough. But anyway, last comment on this one. Was any thought given to my request of adding a remove road option? Yes, it's on a list of 1,000 low priority issues because it's never been asked for yet by a tester. It's fair enough. But yeah, that is it for the Ethiopia dev diary, and we move on to the lovely, I guess, just feedback posts. A dev diary based entirely on this is what we've changed thanks to your feedback, and I love these posts because they're always awesome. But yeah, let's get in and see what we have here. Here's another thing. I guess that Tinto talk about revisiting the peace system, if not next week, will be at a later date, right? After all, it was one of, if not the most requested system when it comes to players wanting it to be changed. Nope, it's not getting any changes. And I have gone back and forth on this. And I think actually a good way of showcasing what my thoughts on it are, because, you know, it's one of the most recent comments that are on here. It's a thread, another thread for bilateral peace deals, because of course we didn't have enough of them already. Guy came up with a suggestion, and I think my comment here is pretty much sums my thoughts up on it. Bilateral peace deals are oh yeah, that'd be kind of nice. But when thinking deeper about it, the player will just use it to get that extra little bit of land, and it helps only those with money, and it will be used to exploit the AI. EU4's peace system worked perfectly well enough, and it will work in EU5 too. And that's where I kind of stand on this. I don't think it is necessary to have bilateral peace deals. Johan has already pretty adequately, in my eyes, come up with a good reason as to why it's not going to be in. He went through it, and it's a whole thing. It's a whole, I will leave a link to this in the description below if you want to read that there. And oh, it looks like back in November I had that exact same thought. I didn't actually read this before I wrote the other one, but I guess my thoughts have not changed at all. I guess they have not changed at all, but whatever, it doesn't matter. They're not getting any changes. Quantum computers do not exist yet, so the factorial issue of why it's not going to be a thing, it's still there. No one's come up with a good suggestion on how to have it in, and that is the way it currently stands. Moving on, though. Why not just have societal value decay to 0 instead of getting stuck where you last left them? Because that made a rather bad system. I assume they've tried it with the equilibrium points and all that kind of thing, and it just doesn't work as well as the system they currently have. So I think that's perfectly reasonable. Is it both ways or only downstream? So this is talking about the rivers aiding in proximity, and it's something that I had pointed out as well, that hopefully the wording wasn't that it was not going to help going upstream. Both ways work. Proximity will be traced upstream as well, but downstream is better, and that is the way it should be. So yes, glad that was cleared up. Looks very cool. One thing I hope for is that you'll stick to your guns and have control and proximity being hard to manage. Yes, it won't change. Good, because it is an interesting system. And I think one of the big ways that blobbing is going to be organically managed, right? The way that blobbing was managed in EU4 was things like the government capacity system, which was kind of meh. But yeah, this system, I'm a big fan of what we're seeing here. If you get a societal value low enough that you lose their specific reform, what exactly happens? Do you lose stability? Do you get another reform? Do you just not get that reform? Basically, you lose that reform and then you pick another valid one, which is, reasonable enough. Finally, another comment by me. Essentially, we had essentially we had a new version of the estate screen. We had this one here, and it looked not as good as this one, right? We got lovely colors, the background, the filigree, the UI just looked better here. And then we got this, and it was back to being kind of crap. So essentially, I just asked, is it just a case of different branches being used to test different things, and then the prettier UI and mechanics will merge at the end? And essentially, it's supposed to be colored, and they just got new backgrounds in the UI that haven't got colors yet. So essentially, yeah, it's got new stuff that hasn't been implemented yet. The UI has not been downgraded, so don't even worry about that. I did see, I think it was on Reddit, somebody saying that they're sad that the UI stuff has been downgraded, and that just seems like unlikely. So I made this this comment in response to that, just so I could put it in this video to clear that up. But anyway, that is all I have for you for today. I hope you have enjoyed this video. It might not be the longest one. There's not a huge amount of comments to go over, but yeah, I think there's some interesting stuff in there. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Of course, on Wednesday we have another Tinto Responses Dev Diary, and we'll see a bunch of other changes that have come into the game thanks to your feedback. And if we can have a look, diplomacy and military, very much looking forward to seeing what is changing here. That'll be on Wednesday. I hope to see you in the comment section today and then as well. And remember, we do not have a Tinto flavor for next Friday because Tinto's got some internal shenanigans going on. And there's a lot of rumors around that too, so stay tuned. There might be something about that. Who knows yet? Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.